Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to Reading with me. Today our learning intention is to make a mental image. So it's a visualization strategy, and we looked at this last week. It's when we make a when we read, we should be making a mental image in our mind. We should be creating pictures in our mind. We should be creating a movie that we can start and stop to help us comprehend what we are reading more. So we're going to be looking at the things that authors do to make it easy for us to visualize, because that's what they want. They want it to be easy for us to visualize their story in our mind. We're going to read through a couple of pages, just not much at all, a little bit of our class novel, our cohort novel, The Witches, and we're going to be looking for key words and phrases, so more than one word, that help describe what it is we're visualizing. So as I come to something that helps me visualize in my mind, we're going to stop and I'm going to write down that keyword or that phrase on here, because I'm going to be doing one page with you, and then you're going to be doing the second page by yourself. Okay, so let's get started. I'll back up and reread already. My grandmother. So, chapter 2. I myself had two separate encounters with witches before I was 8 years old. So already, when I come to the 8 years old, so I'm going to write number one, before 8 years old. So before 8 years old, I've noted that down. I've put that phrase down because in my mind, I can see a character that is about a grade 1 size. So before 8 years old, that helps me visualize that size of that child in my mind. From the first, I escaped unharmed. So escaped unharmed. There's another one. Escaped unharmed. So the character has escaped unharmed from the witches. So in my mind, I can imagine this child, this small child that has been able to escape unharmed. But on the second occasion, I was not so lucky. Things happened to me that will probably make you scream when you read about them. That can't be helped. The truth must be told. The fact that I am still here and able to speak to you, however peculiar I may look. So however peculiar I may look. So I'm going to jot that down as another phrase. However peculiar I may look. However peculiar I may look. So in my mind now, I'm imagining someone that can still speak to me. I can still hear them. And they look peculiar. They look unusual. Is due entirely to my wonderful grandmother. My grandmother was Norwegian. The Norwegians know all about witches, for Norway, with its black forests and icy mountains. So here, black forests and icy mountains. So in my mind, I'm imagining Norway with its black forests and icy mountains. So I'm going to write down that phrase. Black forests. I've lost it. Black forests and icy mountains. So I've added that to my list that I have going of the keywords and phrases. So black forest and icy mountains, those words that the author has used helps me in my mind. It's helped describe a picture that I've been able to put into my head. The Norwegians are all about witches, for Norway with its black forests and icy mountains is where the first witches came from. My father and my mother were also Norwegian, but because my father had a business in England, I had been born there and had lived there and started going to an English school. Twice a year, at Christmas and in summer, we went back to Norway to visit my grandmother. This old lady, as far as I could gather. So this old lady, I'm going to add that to my list. This old lady, because those words help me create and imagine an old lady in my mind. I can visualize an old lady. This old lady, as far as I could gather, was just about the only surviving relative we had on either side of our family. She was my mother's mother, and I absolutely adored her. When she and I were together, we spoke in either Norwegian or in English. So that phrase there, when we were together, we spoke in either Norwegian or English. That's helping me with what I'm actually hearing in my mind. I can hear them speaking in Norwegian, in a language different to English. So I'll add that to my list. Speaking in Norwegian or English. Sorry guys, I've lost where I was up to. My class would know that I do this. My father and mother were also Norwegian, but because my sorry. This old lady, as far as I know, as I could gather, was just about the only surviving relative we had on either side of our family. She was my mother's mother, and I absolutely adored her. When she and I were together, we spoke in either Norwegian or English. It didn't matter which. We were equally fluent in both languages, and I have to admit I felt closer to her than to my mother. Okay, what your job is to do now is I'm wanting you to read through the 2 pages that I've put up on the slides for you to read through. What I'm wanting you to do as you're reading is I'm wanting you to note down, to write down in your book or on a piece of paper the key words and the key phrases that you think the author is using, that the author has used, that helps you visualize and make that mental image in your mind. For those, you can re-listen to what I've already read, okay, and then pause it, start it and stop it as you need. But for those of you that are confident to go and read this by yourselves, I'm going to say off you go. you can go and read page 1 and page 2 of The Grandmother yourself and write down the keywords and the key phrases. But those people that might find this text a little tricky, I want you to keep listening, and I'm going to read the second page. And if we come to a key word or a key phrase, you can pause it and copy it down. So, soon after my 7th birthday, my parents took me, as usual, to spend Christmas with my grandmother in Norway. And it was over there, while my father and mother and I were driving in icy weather just north of Oslo, that our car skidded off the road and went tumbling down into a rocky ravine. My parents were killed. I was firmly strapped into the back seat and received only a cut on the forehead. I won't go into the horrors of that terrible afternoon. I still get the shivers when I think about it. I finished up, of course, back in my grandmother's house, with her arms around me tight and both of us crying the whole night long. What are we going to do now? I asked her through the tears. You'll stay here with me, she said, and I will look after you. Aren't I going back to England? No, she said. I could never do that. Heaven shall take my soul, but Norway shall keep my bones. The very next day, in order that we might both try to forget our great sadness, my grandmother started telling me stories. She was a wonderful storyteller, and I was enthralled by everything she told me. Okay, so boys and girls, I'm going to leave it there. So your job is, if you haven't already gone, okay, is to go back and re-listen to me reading those 2 pages. And what I want you to do, just like I did, is if you come to a key word or a phrase that helps you visualize and make that mental image in your mind, I want you to write it down. So you'll put the number and then the key word or the phrase. Okay, so challenge yourself. See how many you can get. I am looking forward to seeing everyone's work. Have a great day. Bye.